Hello and welcome to RadioTimes.com's review of Dune Part Two. After over 2 years and a big delay last year, we've finally been transported back to Arrakis. And the first question is, was it worth the hype?
Oh my God, yes it was. Simple answer to that. It's just such a spectacle. It looks amazing. We were talking a bit before about how so much of it is done practically, which just absolutely makes it. I think the cast are amazing. I absolutely loved it. What did you think?
Yeah, similarly, and I think there's so much that kind of could have gone wrong on the book to screen kind of transition. You know, for example, we were mentioning about the worm riding. It's easy to imagine a world in which that just looks a bit naff. It doesn't have the scale. It doesn't, it just looks a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think that is one example of just where they've just completely nailed it, where it just feels so real, like the world just feels so transportative and so immersive. And yeah, that's just such a good starting point for telling the epic story that kind of follows.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the same for you, but in my screening, that bit particularly, everyone was just mesmerised.
Yeah.
It just looked so beautiful. It was so suspenseful, even though I knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I was really, really impressed with Timothée Chalamet, actually. I mean, the cast are absolutely amazing in this. We've got some new additions, haven't we?
Yeah.
What did you think of them?
Yeah, I think across the board, I think just the casting for this series, 2 films in, across the board has been really good. And I think the new additions all really acquitted themselves very well. I know we're very fond of Austin Butler's performance in this film, playing Fade Roffa, the kind of villainous nephew of the already extremely villainous Baron Harkonnen. And, it's quite difficult in some ways to outshine Stellan Skarsgård's villain's performance, but I think he was genuinely frightening in the film.
Yeah, he was so chilling. The scenes with, oh my God, the fight at the end with Paul. I was looking at these two characters who were like two sides of the same coin. Again, that was a mesmerising scene. Him alongside Léa Seydoux. Even though that was short and sweet, it was just brilliant. I thought he was so chilling. He does it a lot more, even more psychotic and even more animalistic than the books, and I just loved that. I've seen him talk with Villeneuve about that, and I just thought it was such a brilliant way to go.
Yeah, and he's psychotic without it kind of, I think, going too much into kind of caricature evil character as well. You kind of believe the evil there, which I think is really... And also, I think that quite nicely counterbalances with Stellan Skarsgård's Baron, who is very evil, but there's something kind of faintly amusing about
the
big
bit
suit
about
and him having his baths in the kind of black liquid that he bathes in. We're not getting any of that from Fade Roffa. He's just pure evil. But really
I'm just genuinely frightened for anyone in his presence.
Yeah,
it's brilliant and such a new role for Austin Butler. I was so impressed.
Yeah, and we know how immersed he gets in his characters from Elvis. I just hope that he's not really gone over to the dark side, playing this character, because it must have taken its toll. But yeah, he's of course one of the characters who has made the transition from the book to the screen, and generally speaking, it's quite a loyal, faithful translation. There are a few things which have been kind of changed by Denis Villeneuve, and I think generally for the better. So one example is Lady Jessica, played by Rebecca Ferguson, has been given a slightly bigger role.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got someone like Rebecca Ferguson, I feel like you cannot waste her.
Yeah.
I was, again, so impressed. She makes such a big transition throughout this film, and I just think at every point she just crushed it. She absolutely crushed it. What did you think?
Yeah, similarly, I agree. And I think one of the reasons I guess she's kind of put more to the kind of sidelines in the book is the emergence of the character of Aaliyah, who is in this film, but in a slightly different way than maybe we would have expected based on the book.
Yeah, and that was kept very under wraps, wasn't it? The casting of Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah.
I thought it was. It was one of those things from the books. I think this most of all. I was thinking, how on earth is that going to be done? How is it going to be portrayed? It was very abstract in some ways. We finally got to see Anya Taylor-Joy in the end. It was a very small role in this one, but I'm very excited for how it sets up a potential, we're hoping, Dune Messiah, the third film.
Yeah.
Because we know that she does have a bigger role in that. Villeneuve's been very open about that, and just from the books, she does just have that bigger role, and I'm really excited to see how that kind of develops.
Yeah, and I think it just was the right decision in the film not to have kind of this child as she is in the book. I just think, that's the approach David Lynch took in the previous filmed version, which we know wasn't as kind of consistently. I think there are good aspects of it in terms of the production design and stuff, that film, but certain things come across a little bit naff, and I do think Aaliyah is one of those things. So I think having her kind of, unborn throughout this film, but still having a role, just kind of made more sense in terms of just kind of suspending disbelief and kind of, it feeling kind of more, without taking us out of it, really. Yeah,
and after Renesmee and Twilight, I think we've had quite enough of those creepy babies that aren't quite done right. So I think Villeneuve was very, very right in his decision here.
Yeah, I think maybe if there's one kind of book change that I was a little bit disappointed was that Stephen McKinley Henderson's character, Hawat, is kind of cut from the film. He was in the first one, and in the book, the second half of the book, he actually has a really interesting arc in that he's being poisoned by the Baron, being kept alive to kind of be his servant, but will only get the antidote if he kind of is faithful to him. And I think that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think it's maybe just a case of couldn't fit everything in, some sacrifice?
I think it's exactly that. Yeah, it's such a vast book to even chop it in half and do it in two is impressive. And I think, this second film, it has to cover so much. It was at such risk of being sped along too quickly. But I think, the pacing felt right in the end. I think they cut the right amount out, and they really did still adapt everything, I think, that was really essential and really important.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it would have been nice to see those little bits, and I don't know, hopefully in future, maybe, who knows what we'll get.
Yeah, I do think Denis Villeneuve has said as well that any deleted scenes he's just got rid of straight away. Like they're never going to see the light of day, sadly, which
is upsetting.
It's a shame. But I guess that's the way he likes to do things. And maybe one day somehow we'll see more of Stephen McKinley Henderson. He does get a thanks in the credits, so he's not been completely scrubbed from memory. So some of the other, we mentioned Austin Butler. I think also want to talk a little bit about Florence Pugh, who doesn't have a huge deal to do in the film, but you were quite impressed by her performance, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. I think it also makes such nice nods to the fact that she's a narrator in the book, that her epigraphs are used at the beginning of the chapters. I thought that was a really nice little nod. I was reading something about how she did her accent, how she wanted it to be like classic American, which I thought worked so well. And just her chemistry with the great Christopher Walken as well.
Great to see him.
You can really believe it. I thought they were a brilliant double act together.
Yeah, and again, as with Anya Taylor-Joy, we know she's going to end up having a bigger part in Dune Messiah when that arrives. Now, I've not read Dune Messiah, but I've read a little bit around it, and I think based on speaking to Denis Villeneuve about his kind of plans for adapting it and wanting to sow the seeds, I think the stage has really been set well for what's next. And it does seem that we're going to get this. It's not been officially greenlit, but I think something would have to go drastically wrong for us not to get Dune Messiah now.
It can't be too far away, that announcement, can it?
Yeah.
I'm also really excited. I think they really nicely set up, in maybe just even a couple of glances, that dynamic between Chani and Irulan, Florence Pugh's character, and just how that's going to play out, because, we know from this film, Paul has said he's going to love Chani until his last breath, but he goes on to demand Irulan's hand in marriage, and that is going to be a very complicated situation that I think those three, you can't have asked for better actors to play that.
And I think some of those closing scenes with Zendaya's Chani are like so, really kind of just make you want to get the next installment straight away. Don't need to kind of see where that will go. So what do you think about Dune Part 2? Was it worth the hype, and are you excited for the hopefully inevitable Dune Messiah? Let us know in the comments below.